Welcome back to the channel. Today we will witness a mysterious story. A dangerous mission caused a policeman to suddenly disappear in the middle of the forest. The bad news made his wife collapse, but instead of waiting, she ignored everything and rushed into a journey to find her husband in despair. In the dangerous darkness, will love be enough to save him? The truth behind the disappearance will make you shiver. Another day has begun. The weak sunlight penetrates through the dense forest canopy, covering the small dirt road with a layer of mist, winding like a lost thread in the heart of the mountain. The sound of the wind whistling through the crevices of the rocks, the chirping of birds in the early morning, everything seems peaceful. But deep in this forest, something is secretly moving, a danger that no one dares to name. Sinnhat, a familiar ethnic minority girl at the market in the village, quietly sets off as usual. On her shoulder is a bamboo basket containing tools, her eyes looking straight ahead, her steps steady along the path she knows by heart. Since she was little, she has gone into the forest to find cassava roots, bamboo shoots, wild vegetables, to sell to raise money to support her sick mother. Alone, quiet, and never afraid. Since the news that the authorities launched a crackdown on the cross-border drug trafficking ring, the atmosphere in the village is as tense as a string. Strangers appeared more and more. The deep forest suddenly had the sound of motorbikes starting up in the middle of the night. And worst of all, a young policeman went missing while on duty in this area. Thinking of the dark red blood and the torn police uniform lying among the rotten leaves, Sinnhat shivered involuntarily. The strong wind of the forest blew, bringing with it a cold chill that penetrated every fiber of her flesh. The fear did not come suddenly, but slowly seeped in, like a stream of water seeping through the wet fabric of her shirt. At first, it was just a premonition. Then it became a suffocating feeling in her chest. She could no longer hear the birds, nor could she recognize the sound of the wind. All was silent. Sinnhat trembled and bent down, hastily picked up the remaining roots of the knife, quickly grabbed some wild vegetables to fill the bamboo basket. Her hands were cold, clumsy to the point of tearing the leaves. Without looking back, without stopping, she turned around, walking quickly along the path leading back to the village. At that moment, she had only one thought: to escape this forest, the sooner the better. On the other side of the forest, her husband and a few of his comrades quietly advanced deeper into the most dangerous area. Sweat beaded on their foreheads, but no one dared to speak. Faint traces, wheel tracks, torn pieces of plastic led them through tree roots and crevices. The atmosphere was oppressive, and every movement felt like they were being watched. His hand tightened on the gun, his eyes scanning the surroundings. They stood still in the middle of the forest, their eyes turned towards the distant mountain hidden behind the thick fog. Without saying a word, everyone could feel that something was about to happen. Her husband stared intently at the faint smoke streaking across the mountainside, his hand unconsciously tightening on the gun at his waist. One comrade bent down slightly to the ground, pointing at the clear footprints in the mud. They had just retreated not far. Sinnhat safely walked out of the deep forest, her heart still filled with unceasing worry. When she arrived at the market, she quickly arranged the wild vegetables and cassava roots on a tray. The goods were sold out in a moment as soon as they were placed down. With money in hand, she did not stay long, hurriedly returning home. Sinnhat did not know that not far away, where she had just quietly walked through to pick vegetables, another world existed. A world full of mystery and danger. In the morning in the forest, there were no birds chirping, no rustling wind, only a deathly silence weighing down on each leaf. In the middle of the dense forest, a deserted hut was hidden under the canopy of an old tree, where two masked figures were gathering to trade a dangerous item. The darkness of the deserted hut further highlighted the face, covered by a black scarf, revealing only sharp eyes, like a lurking demon. Each step the men took into the hut was so light that they made no sound. The space inside was damp. The flickering light from an oil lamp fell, creating a curtain of dust covering the rough ground. In the dark, deserted hut, in the middle of the quiet, deep forest, two masked figures stood facing each other. The faint light from the oil lamp tilted on the rotten wooden table, reflecting on their tense and gloomy eyes. The air was so heavy that it was suffocating. It seemed that every breath carried a numbing pressure. The drug receiver, his face covered in sweat, his voice trembling with a hint of pleading. "This time I really have a hard time. The goods arrived late, and I haven't collected enough money. Let me owe you this time, and I'll pay you back both principal and interest next time." The drug delivery man narrowed his eyes, his voice cold as ice without any mercy. "Debt? There's no place for debtors here. You know that very well. Pay up or get out of here. I don't do charity." The drug receiver frowned, and as he spoke, he turned away. "You have to understand me. We've been working together for a long time. You can't just chase me away just because of this one time." Hearing that, the drug delivery man quickly followed closely behind, his voice cold but somewhat humble. "Okay, just this time. But remember to pay me back soon. Don't make me come looking for you again." The atmosphere was still tense, but that rare concession served as a flimsy excuse for the consignee, making him somewhat relieved as he stepped out of the dark shack. They were unaware that the heavy footsteps of the police officers were quietly approaching. Their cold gazes examined every corner of the forest, every crevice of the rocks, collecting every smallest sign. A slight rustling of leaves, a strange scent wafting by, was enough for them to realize danger was near. While the two masked men were still immersed in a suspicious argument, outside, the policeman had reached the center of a siege that could change the fate of all. The atmosphere became suffocating. Each passing second seemed to drag on endlessly, preparing for the life and death battle that was about to erupt in the cold, deep forest. Every plan, every step had to be precise, otherwise, death would spare no one. Suddenly, like a bolt of lightning piercing the morning mist, two police officers suddenly rushed out from the darkness, their eyes blazing with determination. Their footsteps were rapid and loud, echoing through the silent forest, awakening the suffocating space. Before the two masked men could react, panic flashed in their eyes. They quickly turned and ran, each in a different direction, rushing into the heart of the dense forest like hunted animals. The sound of leaves breaking, panting, and hearts beating loudly echoed in the air. A fierce chase had begun, where only the survivors could survive. At this time, Sinnhat had just returned home after the early morning market. She sat down on the porch, breathing a sigh of relief. The gentle breeze carrying the familiar scent of the mountains and forests made her feel strangely peaceful. But Sinnhat had no idea that in the deep forest where she had just passed, her husband, a police officer, was facing lurking danger. In the midst of a tense siege, every passing second could mean the difference between life and death. After a frantic chase, the trail of the two criminals suddenly disappeared in the jungle. Hang and a police comrade immediately split up, each in a different direction to continue the hunt. Hang went deeper into the small path, eyes wide open, hands gripping the stick, each step cautious. But he did not know that, on the dense treetops above, a dark figure was silently watching every move. That person lay in wait like a predator, eyes sharp, waiting for the opportunity to attack. Taking advantage of the moment Hang entered the deep forest, eyes still wide open to examine ahead, he, the person who was ambushing behind the foliage, attacked without hesitation. With a decisive leap, he landed behind her like a ghost in the middle of the jungle. Not having time to realize the danger, Hang only heard a very faint swish sound behind her, then a heavy piece of wood hit her hard on the back of the neck. The blow was too fast, too dangerous. Hang's entire body collapsed onto the ground, covered with rotten leaves. He didn't say a word. He bent down, quickly rummaging through his soldier's shirt. When he got the phone, his eyes flashed, full of calculation. Leaving no trace, he slid into the darkness of the forest, disappearing as if he had never existed. The forest wind howled again, colder than before. As for Hang, she lay there alone and unconscious, in the midst of an unending danger. Just then, from the deep darkness of the old forest, a deep roar rang out, chilling the flesh. The huge tiger slowly stepped out, its striped fur glowing in the flickering light. Its bright yellow eyes were fixed on Hang, who was lying motionless on the ground. It lowered its body step by step, approaching, its claws digging into the rotten leaves. Without a sound, a soft hiss escaped. Then its white teeth bared, drool dripping. It was hungry, and Hang was a rare delicacy in the deep forest. No one knew danger was so close it was suffocating. Just as the tiger opened its mouth wide, preparing to devour Hang, turning him into a feast of flesh and blood in the deep forest, from afar, soft footsteps suddenly rang out. A young girl, a villager returning late from work on the fields, happened to appear in the middle of the trail. The human voice echoed in the forest, causing the tiger to stop. Its bright yellow eyes immediately turned away, alert. With a heavy breath, it growled softly, then turned sharply, quickly disappearing into the dense forest. In a split second, the ferocious beast disappeared, leaving Hang lying motionless, narrowly escaping death. When the tiger had just disappeared into the deep forest, the young girl had not yet recovered her composure when her eyes froze. In front of her, a man lay motionless. She rushed forward in panic, her heart pounding. "Hey, can you hear me? Is there anyone? Help!" She shook the person lying there, shouting loudly, her voice lost in fear. Suddenly, from another turn, a young man heard the cry and rushed over. Seeing the scene, he did not ask much, immediately helped her lift the police officer onto his shoulder. The two crossed the forest, slipped through a small path, and brought him to the girl's wooden house hidden on the hillside. Sin not at home. She had no idea that her husband was in danger. Deep in the forest, the sound of birds chirping outside the door, the smell of kitchen smoke, and the peaceful pace of life seemed to be in complete contrast to what was happening not far away. In another place, the policeman stood in the middle of the jungle, his hands shaking slightly as he took out his phone, trying to call Hang to ask about the situation. But the phone only rang continuously, without a response. His eyes gradually became worried, a feeling of unease crept into his heart. Unable to sit still, he decided to follow the path the path Hang had taken to find his comrades. Each step echoed softly on the dry leaves, but all around him was the sound of the wind whistling and the sound of wild birds, not a single sign of Hang. His heart was pounding, fear rising, as if the whole jungle was suffocating with him. Every minute that passed, the hope of finding Hang remained dim, while darkness and danger lurked at every step. Arriving at the girl's house, in the simple room, they hurriedly performed first aid on Hang. The atmosphere was tense, every passing second was filled with pressure. Although the danger had temporarily receded, both of them clearly understood this was just the beginning of a story full of dangers and traps waiting ahead. Their eyes met in silence, their hearts filled with anxiety for the unknown that was to come. When they had waded through the forest trails but still could not find Hang, the teammate became more and more panicked. Unable to wait any longer, he hurried back to the village, straight to Hang's house. His face tense, he asked repeatedly, "Have you seen Hang come back?" Sinnhatrv walked out of the kitchen, his hands still covered in ash, his eyes filled with surprise and worry. "No, he hasn't come back yet. What happened?" His comrade's heart was pounding. He was silent for a second, then immediately took out his phone and called the unit, his voice urgent. But the other side only replied, "No one has been able to contact Hang yet." At this moment, Sinnhat's face paled. The vague premonitions from early morning suddenly came flooding back. Her heart ached. A feeling of unease crept into every breath. No one said anything more, but both understood. Hang might have been in real danger in that cold forest. Without saying another word, Sinnhat immediately took her coat, climbed onto her motorbike with the police comrade, and rushed out of the village. The wind blowing in, her face was cold, but her heart was burning like fire. They stopped at every intersection, at every small shop along the road, asking the people around the area, "Has anyone seen a young policeman passing by?" But everyone shook their heads. The further they went, the more worried Sinnhat became, as if something bad was waiting ahead. Let's watch the next episode.